There is something you used to do every single day, without effort, without thinking, that you almost never do anymore. You used to sit with nothing. No screen, no sound, no stimulation. Just you, and the quiet hum of your own mind. And in that emptiness, something important was happening. Something you have almost entirely lost. The modern world has declared war on boredom. Every waiting room has a screen. Every commute has a podcast. Every spare moment has a feed to scroll. And you barely notice it anymore because it feels normal. It feels productive. Why waste a single second doing nothing when you could be learning, consuming, optimizing? But here is what nobody tells you. That empty space you keep filling, it was never empty. It was the most fertile ground your mind has ever known. Neuroscientists call it the default mode network. It is a system of brain regions that activates specifically when you are not focused on anything external. When you are staring out a window, sitting in silence, letting your mind drift without direction. And what this network does is extraordinary. Journalist Manoush Zomorodi captured this beautifully in her TED Talk on boredom and creativity. And I quote, "When you get bored, you ignite a network in your brain called the default mode. In the default mode is when we connect disparate ideas. We solve some of our most nagging problems. And we do something called autobiographical planning. It is where your brain processes memories and makes sense of your experiences. It is where self-reflection happens, where you ask the deep questions. Who am I? What do I actually want? Does the life I am building feel like mine? It is where creativity is born, where seemingly unrelated ideas connect into something new. And as neuroscience has now confirmed, this network is the foundation of imagination itself. And it is where your brain consolidates meaning, turning scattered days into a coherent story of your life. Without this network, you are running on autopilot, reacting to the next notification, the next task, the next piece of content, but never stopping to ask whether any of it matters. You can be incredibly busy and completely lost at the same time. And most people are. A study from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology found that the average human attention span has dropped to 7.6 seconds. That is a 37% decline since the year 2000. We check our phones an average of 96 times per day. That is once every 10 minutes. And every time you reach for that device in a quiet moment, you are shutting down the exact neural network that gives your life depth. Think about that. 96 interruptions every day, each one a small act of turning away from yourself. Each one a quiet message to your brain that says, whatever is happening inside you right now is less important than whatever is happening on that screen. Over weeks, over months, over years, that message compounds, and slowly, the voice inside you, the one that knows what you actually need, gets quieter and quieter until you can barely hear it at all. The ancient contemplative traditions understood this long before neuroscience gave it a name. In Zen Buddhism, there is a practice called shikantaza. It translates simply to just sitting. No mantra, no visualization, no goal. You sit and you do nothing. The entire practice is the willingness to be with what is, without reaching for something more. The Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote nearly 2,000 years ago, "The mind must be given relaxation. It will rise improved and sharper after a good break. Just as rich fields must not be forced, for unbroken productivity will quickly exhaust them, so constant effort will sap our mental vigor. Rest restores it." And in the Taoist tradition, there is a concept called Wu Wei, often translated as non-action or effortless action. It does not mean laziness. It means aligning with the natural rhythm of things instead of forcing your way through every moment. The river does not push itself to the ocean. It flows. 3 different traditions, separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years. all arriving at the same truth. The most important things happen when you stop trying to make them happen. But somewhere along the way, we decided that doing nothing is a sign of weakness, a waste of time, a moral failing. And the technology in your pocket became the perfect tool to enforce that belief. Because now, doing nothing is not just uncomfortable, it is almost impossible. The moment stillness arrives, your hand reaches for the screen before your conscious mind even decides to. Here is where this gets really interesting. That discomfort you feel when you have nothing to do, that restlessness, that itch to check something, anything, that is not a flaw, it is a signal. It is your nervous system telling you that it has been trained to depend on external stimulation the way a body depends on oxygen. And like any dependency, the withdrawal feels unbearable at first. But the research tells a different story about what happens on the other side. A landmark study published in the journal Science found that when people were left alone in a room with nothing but their own thoughts for 15 minutes, many preferred to give themselves mild electric shocks rather than sit in silence. 67% of men and 25% of women chose to electrically shock themselves rather than sit alone with their thoughts for 15 minutes. But the people who stayed with it, who sat through the discomfort, reported something unexpected. After the initial resistance faded, they described a sense of clarity. Ideas surfaced that had been buried under weeks of noise. Emotions they had been avoiding finally had space to be felt. Some described it as the first honest conversation they had with themselves in months. This is what the contemplative traditions have always known. The path to clarity does not run through more information. It runs through less. Neuroscientist Andrew Huberman described it in these exact words, and I quote, "The default mode network is really the network that starts being engaged when you close your eyes and start paying attention to your thinking, as opposed to the sensory outside world. It is especially important for what is called spontaneous imagination. You do not find yourself by consuming more content. You find yourself in the gaps between the content, in the moments where nothing is happening and you are simply here." Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Zen master, put it beautifully. Silence is essential. We need silence, just as much as we need air, just as much as plants need light. If our minds are crowded with words and thoughts, there is no space for us. So what does reclaiming this look like in practice? It is simpler than you think, and harder than you expect. Start with 5 minutes. Sit somewhere comfortable. No phone, no music, no book, nothing. Just sit. Your mind will resist. It will tell you this is pointless, that you are wasting time, that there is something more useful you could be doing. Let it protest. Do not argue with it. Just notice the resistance and stay. The next time you are waiting, anywhere, for anything, do not reach for your phone. Stand there. Feel the air. Notice the people around you. Let your mind wander wherever it wants to go. You are not meditating. You are not practicing anything specific. You are just giving your default mode network permission to do what it was designed to do. Walk without headphones, even once a week. Let the sounds of the world be your only input. Your brain will begin to process things differently when it is not being fed a constant stream of someone else's thoughts. And here is what begins to change. The creativity you thought you lost, it was never gone. It was buried under noise. The self-knowledge you have been searching for in books and podcasts and courses, it was waiting in the silence you keep avoiding. The sense of meaning and direction that feels so elusive, it emerges naturally when your default mode network has the space to weave your experiences into a story that makes sense. People who practice regular periods of unstimulated stillness report lower anxiety, sharper focus, and a stronger sense of who they are and what they want. Not because sitting in silence is magic, but because it is the natural state your brain was designed for. You are not adding something new. You are removing what was blocking something ancient. The monks who sat in silence for hours were not wasting time. They were doing the most important work a human being can do. They were meeting themselves. And in a world that profits from your distraction, choosing to sit with nothing is not passive. It is the most radical act of self-possession you can practice. The noise will always be there. The feeds will keep refreshing. The notifications will keep arriving. But beneath all of it, there is a stillness that has been waiting for you. It has always been there. You just have to stop reaching for something else long enough to feel it. You do not need more input. You need more space. And the space has been inside you all along.